Nick Fuentes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I wanted to meet you.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
I've heard about you.
It is Israel.
It's the women.
We're being accosted by black people.
Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right.
And so women exist basically, in my opinion, on a lower plane. You know,
I told my parents, I'm like, Mom, Dad, the Holocaust didn't happen.
White people are every single bit justified in being racist. It is Israel. It is the Israeli government, and on some level, it is the Israeli people.
Like, I'm just for that.
So why do we give Israel all this money? $3.8 billion per year? What is that for?
Sort of want to have Fuentes on. Everyone's going to be like, but you're a Nazi just like Fuentes. Okay.
If they detected that a promising young guy was going to become anti-Israel in the conservative movement, they could crush that person.
But what I'm saying is I'm not whining about it.
Sure.
I'm just saying, like, so.
And so for them, it was very easy. It was the Zionist Jews like Dave Rubin, like Ben Shapiro, like Dennis Prager. It was these the guys that were really controlling the media apparatus that seemed to me to be the biggest impediment.
But then, like, how do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like, what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian.
Carlson hosted yet another Nazi apologist.
Read that. Well, it turns out I think the story we got about World War II is all wrong. Actually.
I think that's right.
One can make the argument we should have sided with Hitler and fought Stalin. And maybe there wouldn't have been a Holocaust, right?
One can make that argument. Nazis make that argument. Unhinged people make that argument.
It's Tucker Carlson at the Real Estate Future Forum 2025.
Never been to Saudi Arabia, and I can't wait to go for a glimpse of what the future holds, because that's what you see when you go to the Gulf.
Because it's of its scale, its significance.
Just get the Hitler thing out of the way. Do you actually admire Adolf Hitler?
in some ways, yes. And I'm not a National Socialist, and I'm not I wouldn't identify that way. But honestly, I don't share this histrionic Jewish view that Hitler is this exceptionally boogeyman, evil figure. My show's a lot more focused on, what you might call the Jewish question, which is what are we to do about this Jewish elite, these Jewish gangsters that run our Christian country? These people that don't worship.
Is that if somebody glosses Nazis on the air, that person probably should not be associated with a conservative think tank. The real issue here is I think that Tucker Carlson's morphing from, I would say, a very edgy right-wing political figure on Fox News, but certainly within the mainstream, into a conspiracist, a person who ideologically launders anti-Semitism, who ideologically launders all sorts of anti-Americanism on his show, and then airs it for the public to hear with interviews like the ones he did with Nick Fuentes, which was essentially a massage of Nick Fuentes. I think that took a lot of people by surprise.
So one of the things you've noted is that it isn't so much, your problem isn't so much that Tucker Carlson had Fuentes on his show, but that he didn't push back at all on the neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic, pro-Joseph Stalin rhetoric, et cetera. I just wonder, last week at a Turning Point event, Vice President J.D. Vance was asked by a student about an anti-Semitic falsehood, this crazy notion that Judaism openly supports the persecution of Christians. It's not true. But J.D. Vance was asked about it. Instead of pushing back or correcting the questioner, he said this.
There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too.
What did you think of that?
I think is a response to the question, which was asked, as you say, in a tremendously anti-Semitic way, the idea that Jews are persecutors of Christians is an absurd contention. Obviously, I would have preferred more from the vice president, but I think the broader problem here is, again, that you have an enormous number of young people who are engaging with true white supremacist, anti-Jew content and are taken in by it, and there do need to be more voices pushing back on that.
You're a fan of Stalin's.
Mm-hmm. We don't need to go into that, I guess.
We'll circle back to that.
Tucker Carlson will have on a Hitler-friendly pseudo-historian to minimize the Holocaust and blame Winston Churchill for World War II, and he will call him America's best and most honest historian.
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Churchill wanted a war. He wanted to fight Germany.
You serious?
Where all he had were bombers. He was literally, by 1940, sending bomber fleets to go firebomb the Black Forest, just to burn down sections of the Black Forest. Just rank terrorism, going through and starting to, what eventually became just the carpet bombing, the saturation bombing of civilian neighborhoods. We're wiping these places out as gigantic scaled terrorist attacks, the greatest scale of terrorist attacks you've ever seen in world history.
What was the motive?
I think part of it, I read about Churchill and he strikes me as a psychopath. Why was Winston Churchill such a dedicated booster of Zionism from early on in his life, right?
There you go. Remember I said a minute ago when he smiled and I said what was bouncing around in his mind was it was the Jews. And now he finally admits it.
The amateur historian who's really, an anti-Semite who's saying, well, on Tucker's show, the real villain of World War II is Churchill. And then Carlson just, sagely nods that, oh, yes, the man who actually built the gas chambers and who invaded Poland and had a secret pact with Stalin, he's the victim. But the man who helped save Western civilization is the bad guy.
It's only the Republicans that support this. There is no other constituency in the world outside of Israel. It is the Republicans that support this. Republicans that claim to be Christian, Republicans that claim to be compassionate Christians and America first, and they support America's encirclement to Israel as they committed genocide of women and children.
Simple yes or no answer. Hitler, good guy, bad guy?
That's a tough. Well, there are no good and bad guys. They're just people. But if we're going to say Hitler bad, then I'm going to say Churchill bad, and I'm going to say Roosevelt bad, and I'm going to say they're all bad. But if we look at him as a product of his time in that moment, we have to judge him with those things in mind. That's all.
You're saying that Hitler was not a bad guy?
No.
And what you're saying about putting aside the tribal interest for the corporate interest, that's absolutely the case. And that's the only way the country's going to stay together.
Exactly.
Big challenge to that is organized Jewry in America.
Israel has always funded extremism throughout the Middle East, including Hamas.
The intelligence that Israel provides is not useful. Actually, it's detrimental because they frequently lie.
And call me all these names, the most dangerous anti-Semite. I'm not even an anti-Semite. And
my boy, we're pilgrims in an unholy land.
Not the swastika.
You stood up to be counted with the enemy of everything that the Grail stands for. Who gives a damn what you think?
You do!
All I have to do is squeeze.
Nazis. I hate these guys.